Hi guys, welcome. If you're new here, welcome back. If you aren't, you probably are, because this is only my second video. I'm Katie. I'm venturing into the world of reselling, starting from absolutely zero. I started about a month and a half ago, and I am very pleased with my progress so far. I've fallen in love with reselling. Prior to, I resold about 6 years ago and did it just for fun, whereas now I'm trying to turn it into a full-time business. I'll link all my closets below if you want to check them out, but today I just kind of wanted to do a fun topic. As someone who has been going to the BINS to source for I think a month and a half, 2 months, is when I've been going. I try to go once a week or once every 2 weeks because it's actually an hour from my house. I just thought I would make this a fun video on my thoughts about the BINS and a couple of tips that I personally have if you're going to the BINS to find the gems, the hidden gems, or whatever you may be looking for your reselling business. Let's go ahead and get started. Let me just first say that the BINS are not for the weak. And what I mean by when I say that is a lot of people are very competitive. Now, don't get me wrong, when you're a business owner, you have to be competitive. I get that. I own another business and a very successful business, and I get that the competition is there. But at the same time, so if you've never been to the BINS, basically it's like an overload of what they had at Goodwill, or whatever didn't sell at Goodwill, or whatever didn't make it to Goodwill because they had too much of it. It goes straight to the BINS. That's the last stop before it goes in the dump. And so it's very cheap there. You pay by the pound. For me, it's $2.19 by the pound. And the amount of aggressiveness that goes on in reselling when it comes to the BINS, at least around my area, is crazy. I get that we all want to find the good stuff. I get that as soon as a new bin is wheeled out, because they rotate bins every 45 minutes, you want to see what you can get first, because first come first serve. But god damn, y'all, we have people tramping on people, and I've seen so many times people get thrown out of the BINS because they couldn't just walk. When they say you may go, or you're good to shop, take your cart with you, people over here be running, and they say don't run. I've seen 2 people be kicked out. She said, the store lady is really funny. I like her. She said, if you're gonna run, you can run right out of the store. So I'm glad that they have rules and regulations, because if not, it would be an absolute shit show. Okay, so now that we got what the BINS are out of the way and my opinion on the BINS, let me give you a couple of tips that I personally do to avoid the madness as much as humanly possible and still get good inventory when I go to the BINS. So like I said, a lot of people, when they rotate the BINS, they'll go in and they'll go gun-ho and search the newest bins wheeled out. But what people tend to forget is when people are rushed and they're running around like a crackhead trying to find the best finds, often the very bottom of the bins, and they're not that deep. I'd say the bins are 1.5 to 2 feet depending on how much inventory they have. A lot of the bottom inventory gets missed, and that is, I think, the secret gold mine. Of course, you can see stuff on top, you can find stuff that's right on top, but in the moment, things are so pressured and going so fast, people are just throwing clothing everywhere. So if you could be one of those people who stay on track, in their own little world and dig to the bottom of the bin, which could be disgusting, another thing I'm going to talk about, you're likely to find some really good stuff. I've found things that I flipped for $50-$60 at the bottom of the bin, and people just let it sit there because it was overlooked, because people are always scouring the new bins and skimming the top. Smart resellers, in my opinion, dig to the bottom of the bins. I know and follow many smart and successful resellers that I look up to and learn from, and they say the exact same thing. So when you're going to the bins, take your time. You don't have to of course, it's nice to look at the new bins, but you don't have to go hit up the new bins right away. I always go to the old bins first. That way I can take my time, because as soon as someone brings out a new bin, then everyone's gonna flock to it. So if you don't like being around a lot of people and you don't like feeling overwhelmed, if you just stay in your own world and go to the older bin, that's what I like. That is what I think is best. So I guess that's tip number 1, is go to the older bins, take your time, and dig to the bottom. Okay, let's get into, I guess, tip number 2 that I have, or recognition number 2, whatever you want to call it. The bins are a very dirty place. You can imagine that overstock and sometimes stuff that hasn't even made it to the thrift store to be looked at by someone before being dumped in the bins are going to the bins. So if someone, I mean, I've seen disgusting, like the smells, a bunch of hair, just icky. You know, if someone has a lot of pets, not hating, I have 10 animals, but like clothing that smells, that's not in good condition, that's really stained. So like, it's hard to find. I wouldn't say it's hard to find. I'm not gonna say it's hard, that's a lie, but it's very expected that the piece that you find, if it's a good brand, it's very expected that there might be a flaw with it, and that you have to look it over before taking it home, as you should anyways. But it's just a very dirty place usually. No matter how hard they try to keep it clean, the actual bins themselves, when you mix a bunch of clothing together that people have not gone through yet, and it's just being thrown into a pile to be looked at by people who live in different houses, in different lifestyles, in different everything, it can get a little nasty. And I know a lot of people wear gloves. I personally don't wear gloves. Instead, I opt to scrub my absolute skin off when I get home and shower. But that's because I want to be able to feel the material. I'm still getting familiar with like the silk, I'm still getting familiar with linen, etc. And so not being able to feel the material if I have gloves on is a little bit more difficult, especially when I'm trying to learn that. And so that's why I don't use gloves. But tip number 2 would be to prepare for a hygiene rework after the bins, or bring some hand sanitizer, bring a snack, bring some water, prepare to shower afterwards, because some days they're better than others, but some days really smell. So the next tip is a personal preference, but I've been learning that for me, until I become more familiar with what quality is with clothing, finding like the bolos that aren't the most obvious brands, I always go to the shoes section first, because the shoe section is never as busy as the clothing section. And for me, shoes within my business bring in a lot more money than clothing pieces. Of course, you get your big clothing pieces here or there, but like if you can find like certain like Nike Air Jordans, or I just found Birkenstocks the other day going for $60. I paid maybe $1.50 for them. That's where it's at. So I like that shoes bring a bigger profit within my business. I like going to shop for shoes, and I also like that it's not as busy. Like a lot of people skim past the shoes, which I am all for it, because I will take my good old time with them. I will say that a lot of times the shoes aren't put together, and so like you might find one really good Nike Air shoe and have to like look through the bin, or maybe like in the other bin is the second one, and sometimes you don't even end up finding the second shoe, which is frustrating. But I like, if I see a good shoe, what I'll do is, you know, I'll take it, I'll put it in my cart, and I'll put it up top, just in case like the hour or 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever, however long I'm there, I run into the second shoe that's a match and can flip it. I've seen people do that. I don't think as many people do that, but I think it's smart. If you're going to be there, and you're going to be there for a couple rotations at least, if you see a good quality shoe that you can flip, just keep it aside, see if you run into the second one. And if you don't, you can just throw it back in. Everyone, you know, has their throwback pile, which is another tip. Let that be tip number 4. Look through someone's throwback pile. Now, if someone throws something back, probably it's because it's stained, something had a flaw in it, etc. But some people have a really high high ASP, meaning average sales price. So something that you can sell for $20-$30 might not be worth it to someone else. Maybe someone else has a business of like vintage, or like something, or like a standard that they're only going to pick up items that make them $50+. So depending on what your goal is, if someone throws something back just because they don't think it's worth it, it could potentially be worth it to you. And so I've found a good bit of things that have been thrown back from other people where I'm like, okay, like I'll only make $15-$20 on this, but I'm gonna take it and make that $15-$20, because to me that's worth it. And I'm just getting established, and you need to grow in credibility wise. You need to grow your business from scratch scratch, and so that's what it takes. You have to start somewhere. And so I will gladly pick up that $15-$20 item that I can flip in the bins that someone throws back. I am not too good for those items. I will scoop them up real quick. Okay, y'all, I could go on and on about the bins, truly, but I've only been going for about 2 months, and I'm sure there's a lot more to experience than what I've already experienced and that I will experience. So I am going to end this video here, but I hope you found it entertaining or could relate somehow. Let me know down below how your bins trips are going, how far you have to travel to get to the bins. Man, it would be so convenient if if the bins were within 15-20 minutes. That's not the case at all. It's a whole hour away. It makes it special when you do go. I try to go like once a week, once every 2 weeks, and I try to get enough inventory to pull me through so that I don't have to go back as often, because it is a drive. But let me know, you guys, this process, what you think of the bins. Hopefully you learned something from this video. If you want to watch me grow from 0 up and turn this into a 6-figure business, go ahead and click the subscribe button. Follow my journey, and I would love to follow yours. Maybe we can be friends. I need some coworkers. So I hope you're doing well, and until next video, we'll see you later. Bye.